Hello, fellow Megatenists. Today I want to talk to you about the action RPG sequel to Persona 5, Persona 5 Scramble: The Phantom Strikers. This game is an unexpected collaboration between Atlus and Koei Tecmo. We're going to talk all about the development and what makes the game tick. First off, this game is a weird project. What I mean is that it's a collaborative effort with a lot of emphasis on Atlus's involvement. The directors for Strikers are Atlus staff, one of the two producers are Atlus staff, two of the three writers are Atlus staff, and the only time the odds aren't in the favor of Atlus is the music, where one of the main composers is a Koei Tecmo staff. All of that to say that, yeah, the top brass ones in control are Atlus at the end of the day. I want to talk all about the art of the game first. We got Usuda, Soejima, Oribe, and Suzuki. Oribe did the promo art, the box art, the full body portraits for Scramble. Soejima designed the new characters. Suzuki was the CG art director, and Usuda oversaw everyone's work. So let's talk about the box art. Oribe explains that the difference between Persona 5's art and Persona 5 Strikers' art. Scramble has a focus on action, she says, so she asked herself how to define action in her art. What she decided on was that combat was key. She actually had a lot of trouble portraying it, so she drew the protagonist's mask breaking as well. The Dengeki version is actually the first one done, and she was caught by surprise when she was asked to actually prepare a second version without him in it. So the two new characters designed by Soejima are Sophia and Zenkichi. The concept of Sophia was created by Koei Tecmo. He knew he needed to draw an AI girl. He thought of a character who wears techno-like costumes for the idea, but this shifted into representing a people-friendly car. I'm gonna be honest, I had no idea what they meant by a people-friendly car, so I looked into it. Seems like it's a kind of car that supports people with disabilities or large groups of people. This kind of manifested in that soft silicone body she has. Kind of think of it like that thing from Big Hero 6. Her design was actually one of the ones that was figured out pretty early in development. And then there's Zenkichi. He's a member of the police force, and through the events of the game he becomes a phantom thief. The difficult part of the design was to find the fine line between gentle and professional with his look. He has a beard and long hair because it's not something that agents normally have. And this shows a little bit of his rebellious nature. This was a design that took some time to arrive at, as the initial design was a close to bald man wearing an all-black suit reminiscent of a typical Japanese public safety officer. Part of the design concept that was considered was how to create a character whom you couldn't tell if they were friend or foe initially. His thief moniker is actually Wolf. The idea was to create a gunslinger-like appearance that you'd see in a western. The design was supposed to feel like a lone wolf. They imagined Clint Eastwood as a lone gunman challenging a bank robber or perhaps a train robber, solo. Unlike the ease that Sophia's development had in the creation process, Zenkichi was a struggle. At first, it was decided he would be an adult who was more of a motherly figure than a fatherly one. However, the idea of there being an adult Persona user was actually something that they wanted to include early in development. This was something that they worried would not mesh well, since they felt one of the fundamental themes in Persona is the growth into true adulthood. Though, since part of his trouble is being trapped in the past and his desire to escape from it, it was decided that he could fit well into the game and with the rest of the Phantom Thieves. Zenkichi's persona is Valjean. Valjean is a character from Les Miserables. He steals bread because he's poor and he wants to feed his sister's kids. He ends up getting arrested and spends a long time in jail. He initially hates society for his situation, but he's changed after he meets a bishop. Valjean is a thief, but he's a noble and virtuous one, whereas Javert is his antithesis, a law-abiding cop with an apathetic approach to the civilians and people that get punished. Because Les Miserables is French, Soejima initially wanted to use French flag's colors for Valjean's design, which is a very insane and on-the-nose way of doing it. And a random aside, by the way, the numbers on his chest is 24601, which is a reference to Les Miserables. I first saw that number in The Simpsons and thought that this Persona game was referencing The Simpsons. Turns out little baby Larrue first got his knowledge from Les Miserables in The Simpsons. Did Simpsons predict Persona 5 Scramble? talk about the story a little bit. Scramble is set about half a year after the events of Persona 5. This game doesn't have any royal content, by the way, just thought I'd mention that. The Phantom Thieves reunite for the first time in a while at LeBlanc, with plans to camp and travel. But a strange new metaverse-related plot begins to unfold, with a concept similar to the palaces. Now, there are jails and monarchs. The monarchs rob people of their human wishes and desires. This triggers police involvement, with them believing the Phantom Thieves were somehow involved. In order to prove their innocence, the Phantom Thieves of Hearts reunite. The overall plot for the game was put together by the Persona team, but the first version of the story was actually pitched by Tecmo. The main goal for the story that Alice wanted to tell was for it to be something fun. To touch on the monarchs a bit more, the main difference between them and the people who run the palaces in Persona 5 is that they aren't meant to be purely antagonistic characters, but exist on a spectrum of morality instead. The game is different from Persona 5 in many ways, including gameplay. At its core, it's also different because it was planned from the beginning to utilize a lot of Koei Tecmo staples. Though, because it's a sequel to Persona 5, they had to consider the tone of the original game, and this reflected in the graphical style being as closely matched as possible. Things like the way dust and lighting is shown in Persona 5 was pretty stylistically distinguishing in Koei Tecmo's eyes, so the goal was to express it similarly. For LeBlanc, Shibuya, Yongan-Jaya, and a few other locales, Koei Tecmo received the assets from Atlus directly and had to reassemble them for use in this game's engine. The game was not without dropped concepts, including time travel to the Warring States era of Japan. Part of why this wasn't pursued was due to the decision not to make it a Musou format game, but actually an RPG. Atlus also contributed what RPG elements to include in the game as well. For instance, one of the earliest versions of Scramble didn't even have weak points or type advantages. Another battle system function that was intentionally left in was the idea that menus and summoning personas and selecting skills would stop the action. This was supposed to give pause to people who weren't great at action games. Something I found a bit interesting was that this game entered its development way back September 2016, when Persona 5 was first released. There were some growing pains with how big of a scale this game was. The development took 3 years, with 2 years being devoted specifically to its story development. The whole reason this game even came to be was that there was a poll conducted by Weekly Famitsu asking what Koei Tecmo Warriors collab fans would like to see next. Famitsu also reached out to all the different companies that were in the top 10 spots. Surprise, surprise, Atlus was in 2 of the top 10 spots, with Shin Megami Tensei at number 9 and Persona at number 10, both of which expressed interest in doing the collab. This resulted in Koei Tecmo reaching out to Atlus with the idea to collab. For the battle system, Koei Tecmo got to show their true talent, according to them. The movement was made to feel sharp, stylish, and anime-like. There were particular elements like the smoothness of motion and the transition when running or moving left to right. Things like Joker's coat used a program in Persona 5 to generate the cloth movement. This was completely redone in Scramble to feel as natural as possible by hand, a result that Koei Tecmo was very proud of. The shadows were also animated in a very particular way, with them contrasting the fluid motions of the Phantom Thieves by feeling purposefully stiff, inorganic, eerie, and doll-like. For Koei Tecmo, Wolf's Collar presented a challenge as it was really high and really wide. Soejima even mentioned that he felt very bad once he realized how much of a struggle Koei Tecmo had with working with his collar in 3D. The NPCs were another highlight for Koei Tecmo. They wanted them to be placed in a way that felt organic and intelligent, and to give the world a sense of life. So details such as drama between NPCs or grouping foreigners who are sightseeing, or customers trying to eat ramen after drinking at a party, etc, etc. The UI was admittedly painful for the team to work on. It can't be too similar to Persona 5, but it has to be of the same qualities. A lot of back and forth between Atlus and Koei, with various ideas and concepts being rejected. That was a pretty big norm for them. The concern was emulating the same thing would be a bit stale. So the idea became, since it's an action RPG, the UI should be actionable from the beginning. Because you could play as other members of the Phantom Thieves besides Joker, the UI had to reflect that change in gameplay. In the end, Atlus staff went to Koei Tecmo's offices to personally say, "I'm sorry for having such a hard time, but we are very grateful with the final result," which feels like the Phantom Thieves traveling together. Some notable UI are the Joker's kitchen and Sophia's shop, which some staff were actually very excited to work on, and did not actually receive any changes from Atlus based on its initial plan into its implementation. The facial expressions were something that Atlus was very impressed by due to the detail and how great they looked at any angle. This was due in part to the fact that the game has its own game engine made by Koei Tecmo. Okay, so I want to talk about the music briefly. We had three major players, Kirijo, Masuoka, and Masa. Kirijo took the direction from Daisuke Kaneda and delivered that info to Masuoka, along with parts of new songs. Masuoka not only worked on music but also sound effects and directing the voice acting. And Masa arranged the songs Meguro had previously made for use in the game. Masa is also the person from Tecmo responsible for the Dynasty Warriors music. This sound team tried to intentionally make the game not feel so Persona-like with its music. I guess that means that's why there's rock guitar. The first track they actually made for the game was rejected because of that reason. It was too Persona-like. The reason they were avoiding the Persona sound was because they wanted the collaboration to feel like its own unique thing. Masa actually got to meet Shoji Meguro early on in development to see how the music should be approached. Meguro said to, "Please do it as you please." And it seemed that with that blessing, the sound actually went pretty smoothly. Masa did have a little bit of trouble with the music in general because of the general sound of Dynasty Warriors not having vocals, so he's not familiar with working with that in a battle setting. This resulted in the volume mixing during battle sections being the hardest part for him. The reason Last Surprise sounds hard rock is because that's kinda what Masa wanted to do. Initially they were just gonna reuse Lynn's recording in the original version of the song, but they ended up realizing that her vocal delivery would have changed if she was given this backing music, so they had her re-record. During the process, Lynn was casually humming along, and they liked her humming, so they used that in the beginning of the song. The biggest question is, can you play this if you didn't play Persona 5? According to co-director Daisuke Kaneda, why yes. Yes, you can. However, playing Persona 5 will make this more enjoyable because you'll understand the characters more. This was a project where the staff thoroughly loved the process of development. Morale was always high, and even though there were many back and forth with Atlus and Tecmo didn't really have to scramble to make a striking Persona 5 sequel. And now, a word from our sponsor, Bai. Hi! I collect things. Japanese things. And I like the idea of importing said things in an affordable and reliable way. That's why I use Bai. They are a proxy buying service, and their services extend to many of the websites you should be using when you want to import Japanese goods, whether that's Yahoo Auctions Japan, Mercari, or the secret website I get most of my super cool merch from that I don't mention whenever I get comments like, "Where did you get this?" Because Bai loves fellow Mega Tennis, they're offering a 2,000 yen discount when you make a new account using my affiliate link, linked in the description of this video. Come on, everyone's a collector nowadays. And using this really helps out my channel because while these videos are a labor of love, they still are laborious. So consider Bai today. And that's it for the video. I hope you learned what you needed to about the development, and it's fun to kind of see the jigsaws fall into place. Thanks for watching, and goodbye, fellow Mega Tennists.